We live in an era of obscene mechanical advantage. Tower cranes swing payloads of 1,000 tons over city skylines without breaking rhythm. Tunnel boring machines chew through granite 50 meters below sea level. Survey drones map coastlines to the centimeter. Computer models predict how a concrete column will behave a century from now, down to the microstrain. And yet the ground still holds monuments that humble every one of those machines. Quiet ones, patient ones, built by people whose entire toolkit would not have filled the trunk of a modern sedan, but whose finished work still embarrasses us. A tomb in Ireland, whose inner chamber lights up like a stage for exactly 17 minutes each winter. A pocket-sized mechanical brain recovered from a Greek shipwreck, packed with bronze gears so fine they could have come out of a 19th century Swiss workshop. A coral fortress in Florida, assembled over 28 years by a single stonemason who refused, to his grave, to explain his methods. A temple in India that was not built but unearthed, carved top-down out of a cliff face until a complete building stood in negative. A stone circle in England, supplied with rocks, hauled from 240 kilometers away by people who, by every textbook definition, should not have been capable of organization at that scale. A Turkish hilltop that forced archaeologists to redraw their entire timeline of civilization. A Bolivian ruin cut so precisely in diorite that today we would need diamond tooling and CAD software to repeat the trick. A Lebanese platform holding stones each heavier than a fully loaded jumbo jet. A Peruvian wall whose joints are tighter than the tolerance of the tools we use to make joints now. And a pyramid on the edge of the Egyptian desert whose geometry is so clean that satellite-guided surveyors still cannot reproduce it. No aliens required, no hidden alphabets, no secret civilizations, just a stubborn, recurring fact. Every few thousand years, somebody builds something that the next 10,000 years of engineering cannot fully explain. This is our run-through of 10 such places. Stay with us through to number 1. It has been studied for 4.5 millennia, and we still do not have a method we can all agree on. Before the list begins, leave a comment with where you are watching from and what time it is on your clock. We like knowing who is in the room. Most people who have heard of Newgrange know almost nothing about it. They know it is somewhere in Ireland. They know it is old. Some of them remember a photograph of a round green mound. They do not know why it matters. Newgrange matters because of one morning. The mound sits in County Meath, in the bend of the River Boyne, about 50 kilometers north of Dublin. From the outside, it looks like a hill that someone landscaped. Knee-high grass, a ring of white quartz standing stones around its perimeter. A low, retaining wall of carved slabs with swirling patterns that feel less like decoration and more like the beginning of something we never finished learning. This is not a hill that grew here. It was built here. A ring cairn, not a natural drumlin. About 80 meters across, 13 meters tall at its highest point. A single narrow passage bored through the southern face and run deep into the body of the structure. Inside that passage is a chamber, built corbelled so that each successive course of stone leans slightly inward over the one beneath it, until the top course bridges the gap without any keystone at all. The chamber has been dry for over 5,000 years. Water has not gotten in. Smoke from hundreds of winter fires has not cracked it. If you took a modern engineering student and asked them to corbel an underground chamber using only hammerstones, antler, picks, and wedges, they would be wrong several times before they were eventually right. The Newgrange builders were right the first time. What lifts it onto this list is the roof box, Above the entrance, set into the masonry with the precision of a rifle scope, is a rectangular slit. It is not a window, it is a slot. For most of the year, it does nothing in particular. Light comes in at an angle that misses the rest of the structure. For roughly 17 minutes once per year, around the winter solstice, the sun coming up over the ridge to the southeast reaches a specific altitude and azimuth. For that brief window, the slot frames a beam of light and sends it down the 19-meter passage, where it slides along the floor, climbs the wall opposite, and settles for a moment of full illumination on a vertical slab at the very back of the chamber. Then it retreats the way it came. It is not approximately aligned. It is engineered. You can test the geometry by changing any single dimension by a small amount and watching the event fail. Make the passage 10 centimeters longer in the wrong direction, and the beam never reaches the back wall. Make the slot a degree off, and the beam arrives late and stops short. The tolerances are intimate. Newgrange operates at tolerances that would be pleasant to find in a precision instrument shop. The builders had, as far as we can tell, no writing system, no metal, no standing army, no state. They were farmers on a tidal river who knew their seasons because their survival depended on it. What is surprising is what they did with that knowledge. They did not merely build a marker pointing at the solstice sunrise. They built a building that enacts the solstice sunrise as a piece of seasonal theater for an audience of whoever would be inside on that one morning a year. Modern astronomers and archaeoastronomers have confirmed the alignment repeatedly. Critics have suggested the alignment could be accidental. Closer reviews have found this is not a defensible position. The combined error budget is too tight. Someone knew what they were doing. What we do not know is how. We do not know how a society without documented mathematical astronomy arrived at the design parameters necessary to execute a precision astronomical alignment 5,000 years before the Greeks were doing it. On a clear December morning, if you are one of the few names drawn in the annual lottery, you can be inside when the sun arrives. The light will look exactly like it looked in 3200 BCE. That is the smallest and earliest item on this list. In 1900, a party of Greek sponge divers was working the seabed between the island of Antikythera and the southwestern corner of the Peloponnese. They were after natural sponges, not history. One diver surfaced with a lump of corroded bronze that he almost threw back. Months later, when the lumps were being catalogued and cracked open, this one turned out to contain more than 30 gears. Bronze gears, cut with epicyclic teeth, that is, teeth whose profiles curve on a curve, a tooth geometry which, in the modern era, is associated with the inside of a finely made Swiss watch. There was a main drive wheel. There was a 4-year dial. There was a pointer that tracked the position of the sun through the zodiac. There was a separate pointer that, with a clever differential gear at the back, tracked the position of the moon. The moon pointer did not move uniformly. It sped up and slowed down to mirror the moon's actual variable angular velocity through the sky. There were 2 concentric dials that predicted eclipses by combining the Metonic cycle with the Saros cycle. It is the oldest known geared computing device on Earth. It is dated to roughly 100 to 150 BCE. Its technology, depending on how you define it, vanishes for somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 years afterward. The next comparably complex mechanical calculator does not appear in the European record until the astronomical clocks of the medieval cathedrals. The next portable geared computer does not appear until clockwork began being miniaturized for domestic use in the late 17th century. The textual record is silent. Vitruvius does not mention anything like the Antikythera device. Pliny does not describe it. Cicero sketches the kinds of devices philosophers used to model the heavens, but does not describe one with internal gearing. There is no surviving inscription on the device itself that names its maker. There is no user's manual. We do not know what school of thought was responsible. The mechanism is, upon reconstruction, functional. Modern watchmakers and engineers have built working replicas. Tony Freeth and his collaborators at University College London used the surviving inscriptions on the surviving fragments to constrain the design space and arrived at a working gear train. The replica predicts eclipses to within a few hours over decades. The math works. It is a flare in an empty sky. A brief, brilliant flare. Then nothing. The fragments sit in glass cases in Athens. The largest is smaller than a shoebox. It is also the most surprising object in the archaeological record of the entire ancient world. There is a place about 40 minutes south of Miami where a yard full of carved oolitic limestone sits behind a chain-link fence. The yard is full of furniture, walls, a sundial, a fountain, an obelisk, a barbecue pit, and a tower. The whole thing is accurate to within fractions of an inch. This place is called Coral Castle. It is a monument to a single human being. Edward Leeds Kalnin was born in Latvia in 1887. He was briefly engaged to a girl back home. The engagement fell apart. He interpreted it as a personal catastrophe and decided to build a monument to her. He wanted to build her a castle. In 1923, he bought a plot of land in Florida City and started carving. He carved alone. He carved at night. He refused to let anyone watch him work. When neighbors asked how he moved blocks weighing up to 9 tons by himself, with no crane, no truck, and no help, he said he had discovered the secrets of the people who built the pyramids. The largest single piece in Coral Castle is a gate made of 1 block weighing around 9 tons. The gate pivots on its own center of gravity so well that a child can push it open with 1 finger. When the gate developed a problem in 1986, a maintenance crew had to bring in a 6-ton crane to reseat it, and they could not get it rebalanced to the original tight tolerance. There is a tower over 25 feet tall that has not fallen in a hurricane zone in 80 years. There are chairs carved from individual coral blocks, balanced on bases small enough that you would not believe they were stable. Many of the walls are dry stacked, laid up without mortar, with joints light will not pass between. Total weight: more than 1,000 tons. All of it finished by one man who weighed about 100 pounds. He built hand tools out of pieces of old cars and worn-out chain. He moved the entire complex, intact, 10 miles north from Florida City to Homestead in 1936, when the original land got confiscated. He did it at night, alone, with a borrowed flatbed truck. He died in 1951. He never explained. His tools are on display at the gate. They are pitiful. A set of iron spikes, an old chain hoist, sledges that look like they were last sharpened in the Pleistocene. Engineering analysis of how his lever systems could have worked comes up short, sometimes by an order of magnitude. This is a one-man construction site that has been open for 70 years and remains a problem in mechanical advantage. Most temples in the ancient world are built from the ground up, stone by stone, rising toward the sky. The Kailasa temple at Ellora was built in the opposite direction. It was carved from the top down, starting at the surface of a basalt cliff and excavating downward until an entire freestanding temple emerged. An estimated 200,000 tons of rock were removed, not blasted, not drilled, carved away by hand using chisels and hammers, working from the roof toward the floor, sculpting the temple as they descended. Every column, every wall, every staircase, every sculpture of gods, elephants, and lions, all carved from the same single piece of rock. There are no seams, there are no joints, there are no blocks fitted together. The entire structure is one continuous piece of stone liberated from the cliff. When you build upward, mistakes can be corrected. A misplaced stone can be removed and replaced. When you carve downward, every cut is permanent. One miscalculation, one chisel strike in the wrong place, and the entire structure would be ruined with no way to undo the damage. This means the builders needed a complete three-dimensional plan of the finished temple before they made the first cut. Modern architects who have studied the Kailasa temple have said that even with today's technology, carving a structure of this complexity from a single rock from the top down would be an extraordinary undertaking. The margin for error would be essentially zero, and the people who built it did it over 1,000 years ago with hand tools and got it right. The temple is attributed to the Rashtrakuta dynasty and dated to approximately the 8th century. Beyond that, almost nothing is known about how the project was planned or coordinated. No blueprints or construction records have ever been found. We do not know how the design was communicated vertically. We do not know how the workers were organized. The stones at Stonehenge are famous, a ring of massive standing stones on an open plain in southern England, built roughly 5,000 years ago. The largest sarsens weigh up to 25 tons and were transported from Marlborough Downs, roughly 30 kilometers to the north. That is significant, but not impossible. The blue stones are the real mystery. The approximately 80 smaller stones, each weighing between 2 and 5 tons, came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, 240 kilometers away. No one knows how they got there. Theories include dragging on wooden sledges, rolling on logs, transporting by raft, or even glacial movement. Each theory has problems. The terrain between Wales and Salisbury Plain includes steep valleys, dense woodland, and rivers with no evidence of ancient crossing points. The logistics of moving 80 stones weighing up to 5 tons each across 240 kilometers using only human muscle and Stone Age tools remain unresolved. Then there is the question of why. Why travel 240 kilometers for stone when perfectly good local stone was available? The blue stones are spotted dolerite. They have no structural advantage. Something about those specific stones mattered enough. The precision of the stone placement, the shaping of the lintels for visual perspective, and the engineering of the mortise and tenon joints that hold the horizontal stones in place all point to a level of technical skill the Neolithic era was not supposed to possess. 5,000 years later, we are still arguing about it. Everything we thought we knew about the timeline of civilization may be wrong, and the reason is a hilltop in southeastern Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is 12,000 years old. That makes it roughly 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid. It was built at the end of the last ice age by people who, according to the established timeline, were hunter-gatherers. No agriculture, no permanent settlements, no metalworking, no pottery, no writing, no domesticated animals. And yet they built a monumental temple complex. The site consists of multiple circular enclosures, each containing T-shaped stone pillars up to 6 meters tall and weighing up to 10 tons. The pillars are carved with detailed relief sculptures of animals: lions, foxes, boars, cranes, snakes, scorpions. The carvings are not crude. They are sophisticated, with anatomical detail and deliberate artistic composition. The pillars were quarried from limestone bedrock hundreds of meters away, shaped, transported to the hilltop, and erected in carefully planned arrangements. The largest pillars required coordinated labor from dozens, possibly hundreds of workers. This implies organization, leadership, planning, and the ability to feed and house a large workforce for extended periods. But hunter-gatherers are not supposed to have any of those things. The conventional model says that agriculture came first, permanent settlements came second, organized religion and monumental architecture came third. Göbekli Tepe reverses the sequence entirely. The temple came before the farms, before the villages, before everything we assumed was necessary. The German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt estimated that only 5% of the site has been uncovered. 95% of Göbekli Tepe is still underground, waiting. At 3,800 meters above sea level, on the Altiplano of Bolivia, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, there is a field of stone ruins so precisely cut that they look machine-made. They are over 1,000 years old. They were built by the Tiwanaku civilization, which had no iron, no steel, and no written language. The blocks are made primarily of red sandstone and andesite, with some pieces cut from diorite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. The precision is what makes engineers uncomfortable. The blocks have perfectly flat surfaces, right angles that measure exactly 90 degrees, drill holes that are perfectly circular and uniformly deep, and interlocking shapes that fit together like a three-dimensional puzzle, with tolerances so tight that no adhesive or mortar was needed. One particular H-shaped block has been measured repeatedly. Every angle is precise to within fractions of a degree. Every surface is flat to within fractions of a millimeter. Producing this level of accuracy in diorite today would require diamond-tipped power tools and computer-guided cutting systems. The Tiwanaku had stone hammers and bronze chisels. Bronze is softer than diorite. You cannot cut something harder than your tool. Many of the blocks were also enormous. Some weigh over 100 tons. They were quarried from locations up to 90 kilometers away and transported to the site across rough terrain at extreme altitude. Pumapunku is not a mystery because we do not know who built it. We know. It is a mystery because we cannot explain how they achieved results that our own technology would struggle to match. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, roughly 85 kilometers northeast of Beirut, there is a Roman temple complex built on top of a platform that the Romans did not build. That platform contains the largest stones ever moved by human hands. 3 stones in the base of the western wall, known as the trilithon. Each measure approximately 19 meters long, 4 meters high, and 3 meters wide. Each weighs roughly 800 tons. In a nearby quarry, the stone of the pregnant woman lies partially carved, still attached to the bedrock. It weighs approximately 1,000 tons. And in 2014, archaeologists discovered an even larger stone beneath it, estimated at 1,650 tons, the heaviest known stone block ever shaped by human hands. For context, the largest mobile crane currently in operation can lift approximately 3,600 tons, but it requires extensive setup, a perfectly flat surface, and modern engineering support. No one knows who placed the trilithon stones. The Romans built on top of them, but the platform predates Roman occupation. No ramp system, no roller system, no lever system has been proposed that adequately explains how stones of this mass were transported and raised into position. The stone of the pregnant woman and the even larger stone beneath it remain in the quarry. They were never moved. Baalbek contains stones so heavy that moving them today would be a headline-making engineering project. Someone moved them thousands of years ago and left no record of how. On a hill overlooking the city of Cusco, at an altitude of roughly 3,700 meters, there is a wall that should not be possible. Sacsayhuaman is an Inca fortress, or at least that is what the Spanish conquerors assumed when they first saw it. Its most striking feature is a series of three massive zigzag walls built from enormous limestone blocks, some weighing over 120 tons, fitted together without mortar. The blocks are not rectangular. They are irregular, multi-sided. Some have as many as 12 angles, and every single one is cut to fit perfectly against every stone it touches. The joints are so tight that a credit card cannot be inserted. In many places, even a razor blade will not fit. This is not masonry in any conventional sense. Each stone is a unique shape, custom cut to interlock with its specific neighbors. There are no two identical blocks anywhere in the wall. Every joint is different, every angle is different, and everyone is perfect. Modern stonemasons who have attempted to replicate this technique using the Incas' known tools have been unable to achieve the same level of precision. The time required to shape a single multi-angled block using only stone-on-stone grinding has been estimated at months of continuous work. The wall contains thousands of blocks. What is not debated is the result: a wall that has survived over 500 years of earthquakes in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. The Spanish colonial buildings in Cusco below have been destroyed and rebuilt multiple times. The Inca wall above them has not moved. Now we arrive at the structure that has been studied more than any other building in human history. For 4,500 years, by every civilization that has encountered it, using every tool and technology available in every era. The central question remains unanswered. How did they build it? The Great Pyramid of Khufu stands 146 meters tall. Its base covers over 5 hectares and is level to within less than 2.5 centimeters across its entire footprint. It is constructed from approximately 2.3 million limestone blocks, with an average weight of 2.5 tons each. The largest granite blocks used in the internal chambers weigh up to 80 tons. Herodotus claimed the pyramid was built in 20 years. If that is accurate, it means workers quarried, transported, cut, and placed one block every 2.5 minutes, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 20 consecutive years, without interruption, without error. The 4 sides of the pyramid are aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of 1 degree. To put that in perspective, most modern buildings are not aligned that precisely. The architects of the Great Pyramid achieved orientation accuracy that would require satellite-guided surveying equipment today, using technology that, as far as we know, consisted of ropes, wooden stakes, and the naked eye. Inside the pyramid, the king's chamber is built from granite blocks, transported from Aswan, over 800 kilometers to the south. The blocks were cut with such precision that the joints between them are nearly invisible. The chamber is designed to distribute the immense weight of the stone above it through a series of relieving chambers. An engineering solution so effective that the structure has survived earthquakes, tomb robbers, and millennia of weathering without structural failure. Modern engineers have proposed numerous theories: ramps, internal ramps, external ramps, spiral ramps, water lubrication, counterweight systems, lever systems. Each theory solves part of the problem and creates new ones. No single theory has been universally accepted by the engineering community. The Great Pyramid remained the tallest structure on Earth for 3,800 years. No civilization matched its height until the Lincoln Cathedral spire was completed in England in 1311. And that spire collapsed